Hi everyone, this is Mindy Egan for Lawnfawn, and in today's video, we are going to make a double slider surprise featuring a mole lot of love, and the scene is going to be all of these fun moles that are kind of popping up out of the holes. The stamp sets that I'm going to be using today is a mole lot of love, a mole lot of love add-on, and all of the clouds. I'm going to be using alcohol markers to color in my images today, so I laid out all of the images that I want to use onto 80-pound white cardstock. I'm using my MISTI stamping tool to stamp down the images, and I am using crunchy leaf ink. So this is a light brown ink. This is really great if you want to do no line coloring, but the reason I'm using this today is I want to stamp down a light shade of color first. Sometimes if I'm using black ink, I may not let it dry well enough before I start coloring, especially with light colored markers. And sometimes I can pick up some of that black ink and smear it. So I thought I'd try this today. I use this technique a lot when I do stencils, and I thought I would give it a try for coloring. Now, when I was done stamping, I did leave everything in my MISTI tool the way I had it. So that way I can come back and stamp over the top with black ink. You may notice that the markers I'm using today are a little different. These are Ohuhu markers, and they have a bullet tip on one side. They have kind of the brush nib on the other. And I don't remember all of the colors that I had chosen for these. This is still kind of an experiment for me. They're a brand new marker that I am trying out. So I'm still learning the color combinations. But if you are interested in the colors that I'm using, I am going to have them listed over on my blog, Mindy Egan Design. And that way, if you want to reference these, or maybe you have these in your collection, you can reference that if you enjoy these color combinations. Like all of my markers, I swatch them out. So that way I can reference the swatch guide and kind of pick out the colors that I think will match best. I knew I wanted to do kind of this warm brown for my moles and then like a peachy tone for their muzzle and their feet. And then I went through and I picked out some darker shades for the brown. Like I said, I'm still experimenting with these. I kind of wished I would have picked out a deeper brown, maybe a more woodsy brown, because it was pretty similar to what I used for the mole. Or I could have gone with maybe some grays for the mole would have worked too. So I'm just coloring in my dirt with those shades of brown. Whenever you get things like new markers or paints, colored pencils, ink pads, anything like that, I do recommend swatching them out. I think it is a very helpful tool to have when you want to pick out maybe some color combinations or see what looks best for your projects. I colored in their nose with a medium gray color, and then I also did the shovel. For the handle of the shovel and also for the inchworms, we'll call them, I did kind of a bright green with a little bit of contrast with a darker shade of green. And then the flowers, I am going to do a pink. Wasn't a ton of room to do shading. I did it on one and then just left the rest kind of their solid color. Now, one of the markers I think is the hardest for me to find is a really, really light teal, which is what I like to do for my clouds. And I did find that in the Ohuhu collection. So I will also list that color combination as well. And I decided it would look fun with the heart speech bubbles too. Kind of gives it almost a cloud look. Now, this I know can be the scary part. I'm taking my cardstock, placing it back in my MISTI the way I had it, and I'm going to stamp over the top of those lines with black licorice ink. If you're nervous about this, I suggest getting a piece of acetate and placing it over your card panel and then stamping on top. That will at least give you an idea if you are lined back up perfectly. Mine was lined up really good. All of my black lines are standing out nicely. I have no smearing of any kind, so in case I'm impatient and don't let my ink dry, this is a great trick to do. I also went ahead and stamped some smaller sentiments in my heart speech bubbles. I lined up all the coordinating dies and die cut everything out. For the double slider surprise, I die cut out of 80-pound white cardstock. I have two pieces with the tab on the end for the pocket, one for the front cover. I have my slider track, the two panels that are going to come out of the sides, and then I also have a stopper piece. The first thing I'm going to do is add the 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape to the top and bottom of my track on both sides. The 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape works perfect for this because it is just skinny enough to fit in there. If you try to use anything bigger, you risk having that adhesive exposed, and then your track or your interactive portion is not going to work as well. For the actual interactive portion that's going to move our card pieces or our panels, We need something slippery, I guess I would say. In the intro video, they used a couple different types of bags. You could use stamp packaging. I happen to use a grocery bag here that I had trimmed it down. Now, you're going to want a strip that is 3/4 of an inch wide. So, what I did there is just kind of trimmed off one side so it's a nice kind of even flat edge. And then I brought it back in and I'm trimming this down to 2¼ inches. Now, this is really long. I do not need this much. This is actually could get me a few different cards. So I do trim it down a little bit, but you want to leave yourself some wiggle room for when we wrap this around our track. I'm taking that bag, I opened it up so I have that long strip, and I'm placing the 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape onto one end. Then I'm going to take that track, I'm gonna place it on top of the bag, and I'm going to fold this over. So right now, with my bag, the double-sided tape is facing up. I had flipped it over before. So right now, when I folded that over, that strip of double-sided tape is facing up towards the camera. So it is kind of going around the back of the track. I removed the backing of the double-sided tape, and then I'm going to gently let this fall on top of that double-sided tape. This is actually attempt 2. My first one I made a little bit too tight, and I think it has to do with the thinness of it. So I definitely say practice this a little bit with, some different material can make a difference on how tight or loose you need it to be. I'm going to have a separate panel that I'm going to decorate my pocket. So I have this piece die cut and it has that one tab on the right hand side. I am just trimming that tab off. So afterwards, when I decorate it, it's going to fit right on the front of my pocket. And then I have my two panels that are going to pull out on the right and left hand side. I'm going to start decorating these. A lot of this is going to be some ink blending and my stencils. I started out with the grassy stencil and I have the mermaid ink, just adding a little bit of blue to my sky to kind of start setting the scene. I'll take the stencil, shift it up, line it up over the grass and kind of mask off my sky. And then I'm also bringing in some post-it tape to give myself a ground, I guess I want to say, because I want to have dirt underneath, but I have an idea for that. So I'm bringing in cilantro ink to do the grass. Doesn't have to be a ton of shading, just something to kind of get the scene going. I removed the post-it tape there and then I lined it up so it is masking off right where my line is for the grass that I just did. I'm going to start with a pizza crust ink, so just giving it a nice soft layer of brown. And then I'm bringing in the cloudy sky stencil or the cloudy stencil, and I'm going to add some dough ink to this. So I kind of wanted it to look like dirt, like just kind of poofy dirt. I guess if you think of Linus, you always see that kind of cloud of dirt. And that's kind of what I had in my mind when I was thinking about this is a cartoon, I guess. And then after I finish some stenciling, I'll also go around the edges of that to kind of tie it all together because it did look a little bit too light right there. So I blended that out a little bit more. I'm going to do the same thing for the other panel. Now, I'm also using my Make Art station because I like having those magnets there. My work surface I have, the glass board, is magnetic, but this just seemed to go a lot quicker to help me hold my stencil in place. And I like to dig these tools out every now and then because they are really helpful tools. So working this through, so it's going to look exactly or pretty close to my other panel there, masking off with the post-it tape on my line, creating the dirt because my moles are going to be kind of popping out of the dirt or sitting in it. That again was a first layer of pizza crust and then coming in with the dough ink and the cloudy stencil. Now, what's really going to help create this scene or make it all pretty seamless is making it so it's on the front panel as well. I lined up each of those panels I just did on the right and left hand side. And when I lined them up, I placed them more towards the middle. They'll come back in like right there. I placed it up towards the middle. So that way, when they extend, then it's going to be one seamless design. It actually turned out way better than I could have planned. But that is one way if you want to create a seamless scene is to make sure your two panels on each side are more used as a guide in the middle of the cardstock. I hope that made sense. But I'm doing the same thing I did on each of those panels for my front card project as well. You'll see once this is finished how it all ties together beautifully. Now, once I have this done, we can start adhering our panels to our track, unless you plan on doing some stamping. I'm not going to stamp on those side panels. I'm only going to be stamping on my front panel. I have my seam over on the left-hand side of my track. I added a strip of that 1/8 of an inch tape to that left-hand side. I'm going to flip that over, and then I'm going to add that 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape to the right-hand side. So this is important because this is how our panels are going to pull out. You'll also kind of want to make sure that your sliding mechanism works, so maybe play with that a little bit before you add the tape. Now I can add my panels, and you want to make sure that if you have these decorated a certain way, that they're going in the right direction. So I started by removing the backing of that double-sided tape on the left-hand side. I'm lining up the right-hand side of this panel with the right-hand side of the track. That is important. Then I'm going to flip this over. I'm removing the backing of that double-sided tape on that right-hand side. Flip my panel over, make sure your seam is going in the right direction, and then I'm going to line up the left-hand side of my panel with the left-hand side of the track. So that is really important. That's going to make it just come out seamlessly and perfect. I don't think I've ever created a double slider as perfect as this one came out as far as the interactive portion. So now I pulled those, it's sliding perfectly. I can start assembly. Right now, I have my decorated front panel just placed on top of that track that we just did, and I have these pulled out just a little bit. I didn't fully extend them because I'm actually going to be adding a stopper, and I just placed everything out the way I want the scene to go. Now, on the two panels that are going to pull out on the right and left hand side, those I am attaching everything with a tape runner, making sure that I have some of those clouds kind of hanging off of the edge, or maybe even so it's tucked underneath. I have the little worms there that are gonna kinda be fillers for me. Some of the pieces on the front panel, I did go ahead and add, and even before this, I had taken a picture so I could reference this in case I forgot anything, because I really liked how the scene was laid out. Let's go ahead and start creating our pocket. So these two panels, they have a tab on one side. You're going to want to fold that tab over and then reinforce that fold with your bone folder. We are essentially creating a pocket for our track to go into. Then I'm going to take the notch piece. This is going to have the notches on each side so that they can pull the interactive portion out. So you line up the straight line of the die with the end of your pocket, and you'll want to do this on both sides and both pieces. So you really should be running this through about 4 times, and I'll do that to the other one as well. Now we're going to take that 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape. We're adding it to the top of those tabs so that we can attach our pocket together. I can go ahead and remove the backing of one of those. And then the side that doesn't have the tab, you're going to butt that right up to it, fold that tab over, and that's creating our pocket. But we're not going to close the pocket just yet. I'm going to bring my track in and just kind of get an idea how this is looking, what this is going to be when it's closed, making sure everything fits nicely. Once I'm really happy with that, I'm going to take that out. I'll flip it over. I'm going to remove the backing of the double-sided adhesive that's on the back. So top and bottom on the back. Take this, and I had to kind of push that together. It was a little easier to put this into the pocket then. So I'm going to take that and line it up with the bottom tab. So it's kind of just flush up against that. It's going to fit in perfectly between those scored lines. Give that a pull. And I'm only pulling this out to a certain amount or where I decorated my scenes. That's as far as I wanted to go. Now I'm removing the backing of the top and the bottom of the top of the track. I'm taking that strip of cardstock and I'm flipping up my panel and adding that underneath. That is my stopper. So my scenes will not be able to go any farther than that. Then I can remove the backing of that double-sided tape towards the bottom tab, close my flap, and there we have our pocket. Really, really easy to close that up. And then just make sure that everything is still kind of moving nicely. That's why we have these tabs there so you can get your fingers in there, grab it, and pull it out. And the stopper works great too. Now, before I add my front panel, I needed to cut those notches out of there as well so it matches my pocket. And before I attach it, I did remember to stamp my sentiments. This is usually something I do after because I forget. But I have a sentiment at the top and the bottom. So just popping up to say, I really dig you. I almost forgot what it said. So make sure you take your pocket, pull your panels out so it's in the right direction. I added tape runner to the back of my decorated panel and added that to the front. And when I pull it out, I was really happy how seamless the scene came out. I did have a few extra pieces. Some of the clouds that I trimmed off, I added to the scene when I pulled the panels out. I still had some little inchworms. I had some little flowers I could add. So you could decorate this as much or as little as you want. And the All the Clouds set is just one of my all time favorites because it's such a filler for the background. I could have this go on an A2 size card front, but I want to create a card panel that fits it perfectly. So I am trimming down some heavyweight cardstock. So this is 110 pound. I'm trimming it to 4¼ by 6. And then I'm going to score this at 3 inches. So it's kind of a mini card and it's going to fit perfectly with our double slider surprise. Reinforce your fold with your bone folder, and then I am suggesting using some foam squares to pop that up. That way, there's a little bit of room where they can kind of get their fingers in to pull the panels out. So I added those foam squares, and I'm going to add this to the top of that card base that I created. So now I can just kind of pull at those tabs there, open that up to see the scene. Again, like I said, just the way I stenciled it, everything came out pretty seamless. I was really excited about that. And it's fun to go back through some of the older interactive cards or interactive dies and use them using new stamp sets. I haven't done a double slider surprise in a while. It's so super cute. You can have this be landscape or you can have it be portrait. You can even do a gift card with it. I hope these tips in creating this scene today using the double slider surprise has helped you and given you some inspiration. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.